Can you share with us a little bit about your initial experience with remote work, how you got started, and how you ended up where you are now?
Yeah, sure thing. So it feels like such a complicated story because in my content, you'll often see that I say going fully remote is a very personal journey. And that's what it is for me. There was a lot going on in my personal life. I was experiencing an intense burnout where I was working before, like 2 years straight. And I had no idea the amount of damage that I was causing myself. And so it was more out of just desperation for wanting my life to change, knowing it wasn't going to unless I did something about it. And knowing that I couldn't handle the way my life had been. Like I needed to make a change. And because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted, I knew that I needed the freedom to figure it out, and it made the most sense to get a remote job. While, of course, a lot of us have experienced, sometimes it's really difficult to get a remote job, especially before the pandemic. This was like almost 5 years ago at this point. So it took some time, networking and all of that jazz. And during that time, I knew I needed to set my life up for the life that I wanted. So I sold my house. I got rid of all of my stuff, sold off what I could, took the rest to charity, went down to about a dozen boxes, and still didn't know exactly what I wanted or what I was doing. I just knew that I was taking steps towards something, towards freedom, basically. And luckily, through just different circumstances and puzzle pieces fitting together, I ended up getting an interview with a fully remote international company and did really well in the interview, got the job. I still didn't realize how much freedom I actually had, though. It was a couple weeks in, maybe a couple months, it just hit me. I realized I could do this work from New Zealand. And I've always wanted to go to New Zealand. That's like the ultimate dream, like the number one item on the bucket list. But I wanted to go for 2 or 3 months. I was like, I could do this. So I scheduled the flight, I booked in Fiji, and I did 3 months in Fiji and New Zealand. And I realized, wow, I have a shit ton of freedom. Like I can go and wherever I want, I can live wherever I want. And then on that trip is what I learned what a digital nomad was. I didn't even know what it was before. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll be a digital nomad. That sounds good. And so I just started bouncing around from country to country, and it wasn't easy in some ways, right? Like the lifestyle, the living out of a suitcase, all that was just super easy. The balancing work and life. Luckily, I'd taken the role as a part-time contractor, mainly because of the burnout I experienced, and I couldn't go back to working 40 hours. But I also started to realize that I didn't have very good boundaries, not just with work, but in my personal life as well. And then that was like really when I started digging in, why don't I have good boundaries? And then it's like the onion and the layers that gets peeled back, right? And then all of a sudden I'm on this healing journey, and I have the time freedom, because that's what remote work gives, to actually focus on myself, to give myself what I wanted and I needed. And so as I grew myself, I became a better remote worker, and I ended up being one of the top implementation consultants there, and was promoted to project coordinator to oversee the service department and help them also to meet their metrics, but improve their work-life balance. So I've loved it. And now that's what I do for individuals and companies. And that was probably a lot more than what you originally asked, since it was just about the start.